evening, what to expect. Nothing is close to what we saw last weekend.
Well, that is good news for sure, but tornadoes cannot be ruled out. That's what I understand.
Tornadoes cannot be, the threat is low, but as meteorologist Nathan Scott often says when it comes to severe weather, don't assume anything.
Right.
Don't assume anything. Don't make any assumptions. Kind of some feedback we've been getting from the Storm Prediction Center and our local National Weather Service office is that the environment here in Arkansas really best supports damaging winds and hail. The tornado threat is a little bit better once you cross the Mississippi River, but some of southeast Arkansas, could surprise us this evening.
I know a lot of people are wondering, when is this going to hit? Where exactly is it going to hit? Do you have those answers for us?
So if you see behind us, we've got a few storms or showers developing in north central Arkansas right now at the 3 o'clock hour right now between White County, a little bit in Faulkner County, but primarily in White County. If you're in Searcy right now, it's probably raining out there. No active warnings or watches. Now at about 1:30, the Storm Prediction Center gave this mesoscale discussion. Perry, if you don't mind taking us to Storm Track 11, I want to kind of show them this is what the Storm Prediction Center said at about 1:30 again. The tornado threat just off to our east in West Tennessee looking to be a concern, but the eastern, southeastern half of the state likely going to see in any strong storm that risk of hail and damaging wind. So they have on this outlook again that came out around 1:30, thunderstorm development most likely between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. We're right now 3 o'clock, and as you saw, we are already seeing some activity on radar. If you don't mind taking us to Max 1 just so they can see that radar full. Again, right now the only rain in the state is kind of in north central Arkansas and White County, kind of closer to the city of Searcy. There is no active warning right now. This is just a regular thunderstorm, but we're getting into that kind of time frame now where we could see some stronger storms developing. Now, with that last mesoscale discussion from the Storm Prediction Center, they did say the probability of them issuing a watch is about 60%, so our odds are 60-40 of at least a severe thunderstorm watch. If one is issued by the time we finish this discussion, you can find those updates on social media. I'll make sure to post that map here in a bit, but I definitely think 3 to 6 o'clock, a little bit closer towards central Arkansas. I think further in southeast Arkansas, as late as 10 o'clock, we could see some storms.
Good to know. And you said the hail threat is looking significant at this time?
Hail threat, quarter-size hail is the criteria for severe thunderstorm. I think that'll kind of be closer to what we see in those more intense storm quarter-size hail this evening. Actually would like to walk you through what the models are kind of indicating with radar along with the hail risk. So I'm going to give this a second to load. So where you see the purple is where there's going to be the better chance of bigger hail. So this is right now at 3 o'clock. If we could take this full, Perry, please. So where you see the purple again is the higher chance of that large hail. We do already have a little bit of activity developing in north central Arkansas. Now this is the model, so it's not going to be completely accurate to what's happening right now. But as we just saw with radar, that storm in White County is pretty accurate. Now we're going to play this forward a few more hours. A few more of those storms kind of moving south and east ahead of that cold front we're tracking. This is around 4 o'clock. Again, still seeing that purple, a lot of purple across the southeastern half of the state. So if a storm does intensify enough, hail is going to be the big concern, at least through sunset. Ooh, took us forward too far. We're going to take that back a second. Okay, now this is to 7 o'clock. This is coming right up on sunset. Likely going to see kind of those first round of storms moving east of the Mississippi River. Maybe a little bit of activity still along Ashley and Chico counties, but this doesn't necessarily mean the threat is behind us, because as that front is moving further south and east, that line is going to kind of congeal. So over southeastern Arkansas will still be, needing to be weather aware through the 10 o'clock hour. That hail threat at this point is starting to decrease. So you see that purple starting to move out of the state. But again, once you kind of see that line developing, that also means that the tornado threat really isn't as high. Not to say it's high to begin with, but it's getting even lower when you have that actual linear type of line of storms. That will be more supportive of a damaging wind threat along with the chance of some hail.
And I know you said purple represents the hail. What about this blue here?
That blue is still indicating a chance of hail, but the purple is a higher chance of seeing larger hail. So even with that blue, that's not to say you can't maybe see pea-sized hail, half dollar size hail, but really what gives the criteria for a severe thunderstorm warning quarter size, 1 inch size hail or greater, you get a better chance of that in that purple.
Makes sense. Okay. I did want to touch on too, why is this severe weather threat different from last week's?
So when it comes to the actual severe ingredients we have in place, we do have some instability. Instability is not as high as what we were seeing last week. The shear, what we need for the storms to rotate, not as potent as it was last week, which will also support the fact we will probably, if anything, see the straight line winds, but not the risk for a tornado. And then, we mentioned last week, kind of leading up to what was going on, that the environment was capped. And if the cap breaks, then that will, end up what we saw, those storms intensifying enough to see the tornadoes, to see the hail. This go around, it looks like the cap really wouldn't necessarily break until we get into southeast Arkansas, where that front is actually going to be responsible for breaking the cap. We haven't seen a whole lot of sunshine or anything to help kind of break that cap before that front moving through today. So just a number of things kind of inhibiting us from getting as intense of a scenario that we saw last week.
Can you kind of explain a bit about what the cap actually is and why it's a good thing to have this cap?
Yeah, so I think meteorologist Nathan Scott has probably showed you this graphic if you regularly tune into his segment Weather-Wise, but a great example to use when describing the cap is, think about if you're boiling a pot of water on a stove, the cap is that lid. So under that lid, the water trying to boil, think of that as your storms trying to develop. But they can't necessarily intensify and boil over because you have that lid on. If you remove the lid, the water boils over, almost similar to those storms intensifying enough for us to get a tornado or to get very large hail. Now, some things that could break the cap, of course, more warm air. So when we talk about on a day you're expecting severe weather, if you see that sunshine, that's really not a good time, because that sunshine is bringing in more warm air that would kind of burst through the cap. More moisture, of course, something else that could break through the cap. Frontal lifting, which in this case, if we see that cap break over southeast Arkansas, would be the culprit. Is we do have a front that'll be moving through, I think around that 7 o'clock hour, it'll be moving towards southeastern Arkansas. So that would likely be the culprit today. And then of course an upper air disturbance moving through could also be something else responsible for breaking the cap. But when it comes to severe weather, the cap or the lid is our friend. Wherever we can try to keep that in place, that will really keep the severe threat conditional, which means the ingredients are there, but whether or not we actually see that water in this, or in the metaphor, the water boil over, will be determined by if we can remove that cap.
That was a really good explanation. This is a great graphic, by the way, because I didn't totally understand what the cap meant. I just knew it was a good thing.
And
so
again,
that was helpful.
Shout out to Nathan.
Yes.
He talks about a lot of these different topics in depth and Weather-Wise, but it is good, scenario to scenario, to bring these examples up as we're explaining why one scenario is different from another. Now, we mentioned the tornado threat is very low. It's not zero, it's very low. I want to kind of backtrack a bit, because we showed you radar with the hail risk, but now we're going to do that with the tornado risk, because hopefully this can kind of illustrate again why this is not as big of a tornado concern this afternoon. So again, we are seeing just some isolated rain activity happening across the state. As we play this forward a couple hours, this is within the next hour, 4 o'clock, where you see this yellow and orange east of the Mississippi River. That's really where they're going to have the concern for that tornado. Once you get into the gray, that's really not a really good environment for a tornado. Now, once we get to the 7 o'clock hour, you see things get a little bit different in southeastern Arkansas. Union County, Ashley County, Chico County, a little bit of that yellow is starting to creep in, because again, that's along the time frame that front is moving closer. We could possibly see that cap break, but right now, based off radar, the storm they have in that area does not look strong. It does not look likely it would be the type of storm that you would expect a tornado with. You know, compared to what we're looking at in northern Mississippi at that time frame, I do think that storm with that little bit of a purple in the middle would be more likely to have a tornado. So we will have just a little bit of that risk into southeastern Arkansas. But by 10 o'clock again, when that line is starting to congeal, the yellows and oranges off to our southeast in Mississippi and Louisiana. We do have a little bit of that gray in southeastern Arkansas, but like I mentioned earlier, when you start to see that line congealing, that is more of a damaging wind threat than it is a spin-up tornado. Well, you could see a spin-up tornado in the line, but it is more of a wind threat than it is a stronger tornado threat.
Gotcha. And I'm just paying attention to the rain. It doesn't look like the whole state's going to be in a downpour.
Yeah,
it's very spotty.
It's very spotty. We're really not looking to get a lot of rain accumulation with this. Honestly, once that front that we mentioned moves through your area, your chance for rain is really done with today. I want to actually give you a visual of where that front is right now. What we're going to look at is temperatures and dew points across the state with that front kind of drawn about. So here it is. So where you see the greens and the blues, that's the moist air. So in southern Arkansas, Arkadelphia, Camden, even over to Stuttgart, dew points of 63, moist air, compared to in northwest Arkansas, Fort Smith with a dew point of 37. So that drier air really isn't going to support any rain anyway, which is why the severe risk really stayed across the southeastern half of the state. This front is probably a little bit more southeast than where I have it drawn at this point, but you can see that difference in where we have those dew points in the 40s and then where it turns into more of the upper 50s, lower 60s. Temperatures, about a 10-degree temperature difference from northwest Arkansas to southeast Arkansas. Texarkana a little bit warmer, 82 down there, but 68 in Fayetteville, 77 in Monticello, 79 in Camden. So that front not going to make the hugest difference on temperatures, but it is going to make a little bit more of a difference when it comes to the moisture in the air, which kind of getting ahead of myself, but down the line, you know, tomorrow into the work week won't be the greatest when we're talking about the fire weather that we've been dealing with. So hopefully the little bit of rain we can get today can make a little bit of a difference. Not likely. It looks like rain accumulations are at the most going to be 1/10 of an inch. Doesn't look like we'll really get another good opportunity for rain until we inch closer towards the end of the week into next weekend.
How much rain do you think it takes to actually get out of this wildfire risk that we're in?
You know, that question has a lot of factors. There's really no just
blanket
specific number of how much rain it'll take, because, you know, it has to depend with the ground moisture as well, along with the air moisture. You know, the ground is a little bit dry. You know, coming out of February, where we had that last wintry weather event, that icy event that killed a lot of vegetation, and then for March to not get as much rainfall as what we're used to. Some places across the state are in a monthly deficit of up to 2 inches of rain. So coming out of, you know, the winter season when a lot of the vegetation is dead, this is usually the month where we start to get that water and that sunshine that brings things back to life. We haven't gotten a lot of the water. So until we can get a substantial rain, I think we will continue to deal with a wildfire risk.
And it's unique that we're talking about this time of year. Usually this is a July conversation.
Usually this is, you know, our rainy season, if you will. You know, even going into April, the saying, April showers bring May flowers, which, you know, we still got a little bit of time left in March. But yeah, you know, usually this is the rainy season. This is severe weather season, which is why we're having more of these discussions. But just the idea that we have not seen a lot of rain is, you know, not as common for March, but you know, we're Arkansans. We're going to make it through it. I would honestly rather deal with dry ground, windy conditions than tornadoes. So at least with today, this threat, again, not the most supportive for tornadoes. Again, if you're just now joining us, you know, we've been kind of talking through why this event differs from last week, why you should not be concerned. And I know a lot of people are probably having their basketball watch party. So I don't want this to be something to stress you out this evening. If for whatever reason we do get a spin-up tornado in Ashley or Chico County, we'll kind of briefly cut in. We don't want to interrupt your sports, but the kind of plan here is that we'll briefly cut in and say, hey, this is what we're tracking. If you want to keep following what's happening with the weather, we'll bring it to streaming, but we really don't want to try to interrupt anybody's basketball because I know March Madness is a big deal for everybody.
Absolutely it is. I know people are really invested in that, but we will be keeping a close eye on this weather tonight, and the chance for hail and possibly a spin-up tornado, but that looks to be fairly low.
Yes, that does look to be fairly low. So again, in the most intense storms we're expecting, if anything, it will be those damaging straight line winds and hail, and like right now in the state, really all we're seeing right now is White County moving into Woodruff County. Some thunderstorms happening, look like just north of Searcy, but I do think over the next hour we'll see a little bit more convective development happening across the state, and again that'll be moving southeast through Sunset. I think for areas kind of riding along that I-30, I-40 axis after Sunset, that'll kind of, the risk will kind of quiet down for you closer to the southeastern third of the state. I just think you have until about 10 o'clock that you need to be weather aware.
Good to know. We'll definitely keep a close eye on this and continue to follow if warnings start to pop up. Have you received any warnings yet as of this moment?
Right now, just again watching to see if the Storm Prediction Center is going to put us under any type of severe thunderstorm watch. Not at the moment. That was something, again, if you're just not joining us, we talked about at the beginning. Around 1:30, the Storm Prediction Center did issue what they call the mesoscale discussions, where they're just kind of talking through what they see in the environment right now and what they're expecting over the coming hours. And from that last discussion, they are saying the tornado threat is primarily going to be a concern east of the Mississippi River for western Tennessee and some of northern Mississippi. The kind of agreement between the Storm Prediction Center, our local National Weather Service office, and our team here at THV11 is that those more intense storms, if we do get intense storms here in the state, will be producing hail and the straight line winds.
Okay, and something I hear Nathan talk a lot about are if all the ingredients are coming together, that can be concern. Right now, are the ingredients coming together? The
ingredients are coming together, but again, it's the cap that is keeping things from really intensifying. I mean, when you say the ingredients, how much you have of specific ingredients also makes a difference. You can have the instability, but if you don't have a lot of shear, that's what the storm needs to rotate. You won't necessarily get a good tornado threat, and that's kind of the case here. We have some instability, we have some moisture, you saw with those dew points, but we don't have as much shear in this environment as we did 8-9 days ago.
So that's a good thing, at least.
That is a good thing. Those storms won't really have the best opportunity to rotate and create a tornado.
And another good thing about this storm too, or the threat of the severe weather, is the timing of it. It's not an overnight thing. You're not going to be asleep most likely.
You don't have to stay up late tonight. Hopefully after basketball is over, you're joining us on air and on this app at 10 o'clock. And by 10 o'clock, we should be talking about how the storms are starting to exit the state.
Good to know. And out of central Arkansas, around 7-ish sunset time?
I think out of central Arkansas by sunset. Okay. If you live south and east, maybe of that Pine Bluff to Arkadelphia to Texarkana line, until 10 o'clock.
Before we wrap up, what else would you like to mention? What people need to know?
Just that, we have been emphasizing that we are doing more of these streams with severe events, and I don't want the fact that we're doing a stream today to say, oh my gosh, this is going to be a big deal. We did this stream because last week was a bigger deal, and we want to try to reduce the anxiety. Now, in future events, if we have a low-end event, we probably wouldn't do a stream, but the fact that there is a non-zero tornado risk, and we just came off of a pretty significant tornado event, wanting to calm any anxieties out there as we head into the evening.
Yes, and we appreciate you guys spending your day with us, tuning in for this short stream, and we're going to be back tonight at 6 on the THV11 Plus app.
Yeah, so with basketball, we won't be on air, and our timing won't be what we traditionally do on Sunday. So like Brooke just mentioned, 6 o'clock, we'll have a newscast on THV11 Plus. So if you're maybe not into basketball as much and you're wanting to get caught up on your news, weather, and sports before 10 o'clock tonight, you do have that option. And then again, we will be on air regularly, on air and on THV11 Plus at 10 o'clock. Hopefully saying it's okay to go to sleep. Yes. The rain is moving out of the state.
And during 6 o'clock, things should be popping off a little bit, right?
Things will probably be popping off a little bit, but again, this does look like mainly a hail and wind threat. At best, southeastern Arkansas might be the spiciest, but I think we're going to be fine this evening.
That is reassuring to hear. I know a lot of people are anxious about this, but we got you covered. We are keeping a close eye on it.
We thank y'all for taking time to spend with us today. I know a lot of things happening this weekend. A lot of people celebrating that Hogs win. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you back here at 6.